I'm Nelma, a communication specialist and expert, and I'm here to give you my top tips on how you can make 2024 the best year yet that you have had in terms of the quality of conversations that you're having, the types of conversations that you are having, and to help you to improve your communication skills. I'll also talk about a couple of other things during the year, but this is the main focus. So let's get right into it. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is, when you're reflecting on 2023 or any other year, to be honest, what about the quality of the conversations that you've had, and have you said everything that you needed to say when you were communicating with certain people? Now, I'll take myself as an example. I had quite a few very difficult conversations, not only for work, but outside of work. And some of those conversations, quite frankly, needed to be had. Could I have dealt with them in a better way? Potentially. But there was also a part of me that thought, actually, I'm glad I've had this. And I just felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. What the other recipient or individual did with the information that I put across, that's up to them. That's not up to me. That has no onus on me. But what I do need to make sure is to ensure that I'm giving across the information in a way that is clear, in a way that could be understood, and in a way that is compelling. So, sips tea. So let's kick off with my first piece of advice when you're about to have a difficult conversation with somebody, regardless of the topic. First thing that I would say is lower your own expectations. Yeah, lower your own expectations. Actually, you don't have any expectations. You need to go into that conversation with a very clear frame of mind, body, and sound. So actually, you can't afford to build up any expectations in particular on what you're going to say. You also cannot afford to fantasize, visualize. I've seen some advice out there telling people to visualize the outcome. When you visualize the outcome of the conversation, you are already implanting and putting expectations on there. And you can't afford to do that. It is a difficult conversation for you. By its very nature, that is quite weighted in itself. So you do not need to add anything further to that by way of your expectations. Point number 2. I would say, watch your tone. Watch your tone. And I mean this in the nicest way possible and in the most helpful way possible. We all know that people do not only receive what they are being told via the language that's being used, but the tone, the body language, as well as the words that are being communicated also come into play. So it's really important, actually, that you pay clear attention in terms of the kind of tone that you're going to approach the conversation with. Certain topics are very delicate. Certain topics require nuance. Certain topics require for you to adjust your tone and adjust it accordingly. So I would say be mindful of that, and that's something for you to have in the back of your mind and something to reflect on. Let's get some more tea. And then point number 3. Okay. When you are having that conversation and you're in full flow of that particular conversation, zip it. Stop talking. Let the other person speak. Because it's amazing how much people really psych themselves up and prepare and strategize and think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you can do all of those things, but at the end of the day, the flow of the conversation and the pace of the conversation, when it is happening, is not entirely within your control. So you also need to be willing and go into the conversation willing to listen and wanting to listen. I often see advice in relation to active listening. One of the ways that I would say that you can do that is, firstly, stop talking. And let's pay attention to what the other person has to say. Maintain eye contact. Maintain that focus. I do know that in certain cultures, maintaining eye contact could be considered actually quite rude, especially when you're speaking to certain elders. However, if we're talking in a workplace scenario in Western society, if we're speaking regarding, even with family members actually, in certain cultures, not paying attention or not giving the person eye contact is actually considered quite rude, at least where I'm from. If your elder is talking to you and you're not looking at them, you best believe that they will consider that to be quite rude, actually. So you better pay attention. But also, yes, stop talking, pay attention, maintain that eye contact, and listen to what they have to say. I also see people do something. Sometimes it's women, men can do it too, but it does tend to be women, actually, from what I've noticed, which is the nodding along, the nodding of the head when somebody is talking. Sometimes people do it because that's how they process information. And if they're a learner, that's what they call a kinesthetic learner, where, through doing things, gestures, body movements, etc., that's how you receive information. Other times people do it just because they're being a little bit busybody. There is also benefit in practicing meditation, mindfulness, doing things, having cold showers. It's not just one of the things that the gym bros do, but there is actual benefit in doing those things. And the idea is to stabilize your nervous system so that when you are having impactful life circumstances that just come out at you from nowhere and give you a certain shock to the system, you're able to actually withstand that and nothing really phases you. So you need to be able to do that as well, and that's quite important as well. So those are my top 3 for today. It's my first YouTube video, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be doing more of these, hopefully, and I'd love to have your comments in terms of whatever pieces of advice, tips. I'm also happy to take your scenarios and give my advice or input in terms of how you could go about having that difficult conversation and what's coming up next. Next week, I'm thinking we're going to talk about the sound of our own voice and people not liking the sound of their own voice, which is really important when it comes to presentation, public speaking, or any other endeavour that you'd like to do. I wish you all well, stay comunicado, speak soon.